You can't mention Mega Man to many retro fans without getting a positive response, and deservingly so. The Blue Bomber had a fantastic run of games on the NES before getting an upgrade and landing on the SNES and other consoles. Most people praise them for their fun gameplay and great tunes, except for this one for some reason. I've heard so many people talk about how it's the weakest installment in the series, and I can't for the life of me figure out why. This game is so fun, and it's my personal favorite in the series. The first time I came across it was as a teenager, several years after the end of the NES's life cycle. I'd played some Mega Man previously and enjoyed it, but I instantly fell in love with Mega Man 6. The music is great, the levels are fun, and the addition of Rush Power Suit and Rush Jet Adapter are really cool. If you've disregarded this one as a subpar Mega Man experience, I strongly suggest to give it a second look. Mega Man 6 falls in at number 50 on our countdown. Share your memories in the comments. Thanks for watching. One of the best, most exciting sports games of the 1980s, Blades of Steel is fast-paced, 6-on-6 action featuring smooth skating, quick crisp passing, and furious shots on goal. There are face-offs, ice penalties, slashing, and checking, but if play gets too rough, a fight breaks out. This switches the game to a simple battle mode, which is one-on-one side-view slugfest that adds substantial enjoyment to an already fun game. If the ref intervenes before a fistfly, a penalty shot will be awarded. You could play Exhibition Mode or Tournament Mode, each of which has 3 different difficulty options, and you can select 8 generic teams: New York, Chicago, LA, Montreal, Toronto, Edmonton, Vancouver, and Minnesota. Each team has different strengths and weaknesses, and like its arcade counterpart, Blades of Steel for the NES helped usher in a new era of realism into sports video games. Blades of Steel falls in at number 49 on our list. Share your memories in the comments, and thanks for watching.
1989 was a banner year for Batman fans. There was a great movie in theaters and more merchandise for the character than in recent memory. The Cape Crusader was everywhere, including video games, and his first NES outing ranks among my favorite games of all time. I remember playing it for the first time. A friend rented it, and our group of friends walked back to his house. His NES was connected to a TV and stereo via component cables. Big upgrade back then. So we got to hear the glorious soundtrack through 12-inch speakers. My friend's mom must have told us to lower the volume a dozen times that day. The action was furious, the levels were hard, and the graphics were dark but detailed and crisp. I loved it. Even today I play Batman a lot. I've only beaten the Joker once, but I'll never stop trying. It doesn't have to be about finishing the game though. Batman is fun enough to make it worthwhile. If you own an NES, you need to have this title in your library. I am Batman.
As a child, I remember advertising campaign for Little Nemo and thinking about how great the game looked. I was already a huge fan of other Capcom titles, and I figured it had to be good. My cousin Tom, who lived 4 states away, owned the game. When we visited his house one holiday, like usual, he didn't let me play his NES. He made me watch him play. The game was bright and colorful, and I really wanted to play it, but he wouldn't give up the controller. Fast forward 20 years later, when I was just starting my collection, while shopping at a retro gaming store, I saw the game. It was only $8, so I bought it, and when I took it home and began playing it, I quickly realized it was very difficult. I was determined to one day beat the whole thing, and I was fascinated with how different each level was. That's when I came up with the idea for my blog. I would play old games that never had a chance to play previously and give myself a week to try to complete them. Unfortunately, I never beat it, but now thanks to writing this essay, I have extra motivation to go through with it. Little Nemo falls at 47 on our list. Share your memories in the comments, and thanks for watching. There's nowhere that Konami's early cohesion can be as clearly seen as it can in Konami YY World, and that's because it's literally a crossover game that takes characters from all over the developer's Famicom catalog and puts them into one game. The game involves Konami Man and Konami Lady, the former of which made cameos in Konami titles previous to this, who must travel through 6 worlds to rescue various Konami characters. These include Simon Belmont, Gaemon, Mikey, King Kong, Fuma, and a Moai statue. The worlds are therefore themed around the characters. They're presented as somewhat non-linear maps where you seek out the character and find out how to free them. There's also 2-player co-op, which sounds like a nice addition but winds up just being a quicker way to kill your characters. Try not to strangle your significant other because you were grinding for bullets and someone fell down a hole. We're unlikely to get an official localized version of the game, not only because of the licensed characters, but mostly because a lot of these games didn't make it out west. If you enjoyed the straightforward, largely linear action of the original Castlevania, you might find its first sequel to be a head-scratcher. Castlevania II: Simon's Quest once again finds the whip-wielding Simon Belmont battling classic monsters, but this time the gameplay has been infused with a number of adventure and RPG elements. These include talking to villagers to garner clues, purchasing magic weapons, and searching for Dracula's missing pieces. The action, which requires backtracking, takes Belmont through 6 hauntingly beautiful levels. Though the series would return to pure action with Castlevania III, Castlevania II was a precursor and predictor of sorts to the excellent Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which many players cite as their favorite game in the series. Konami took a risk with its sequel, but certainly they did not do anything particularly harmful to the series. This title should not be overlooked, for it is indeed a classic, and it falls at number 45 on our list. Drop your memories in the comments, and thanks for watching. Love it or hate it, Battletoads is an infamously difficult but nicely designed, good-looking game with nice animation and plenty of humor. You play as one of 2 oversized anthropomorphic toads, Zitz or Rash, each of whom must punch, slam, and kick his way through a bevy of rodents, ravens, pigs, mutants, innovative bosses, and other baddies. The variety-filled action incorporates ropes for rappelling, weaponry you can shoot at times, humorous animations, and much more. There are even vehicles to ride in especially harrowing side-scrolling sequences, including a speed bike, a jet turbo, and a spaceboard. In co-op, players can damage each other, and too often in Battletoads we inadvertently ended our friend's turn while fiercely trying to stay alive in the crazy speed levels. Making it through a level sometimes felt like an accident and left us looking at our buddies like we just got away with something illegal. Battletoads drops at number 44 on our list. Share your memories in the comments. Thanks for watching. Early in 1991, I finally got to play Faxanadu, which I had previously seen in the pages of Nintendo Power. I borrowed it from my friend Chris after seeing him play a little bit of the game, and what struck me about it was how your character changed the way he looked when you got new weapons and armor. I had never seen that in a game before, and I thought, wow, I really need to play this. It just so happened that weekend I borrowed the game I was spending at my friend Mike's place, so I brought it over with my recently purchased copy of the Megadeth album Rust in Peace. We spent the next 2 days listening to that classic metal album, wondering what our next upgrades were going to look like, and stabbing baddies in the face until we finally beat the game. The only downside to listening to that album while playing the game was that we initially missed out on its fantastic soundtrack. It's a great memory for me, and the two will forever be linked inside my head. I can't rust in peace if I don't remember my mantra. How could I remember my mantra if I don't rust in peace? Faxanadu is number 43 on our list. Drop your memories in the comments, and thanks for watching. A favorite among early NES owners, despite the exclusion of the bonus rounds from Nintendo's 1984 arcade original Excitebike, is a side-scrolling motocross game in which you race on tracks containing hills, ramps, obstacles, and mud pits. Keys to the game including using the turbo button judiciously without overheating the bike, enduring jumps, which are wildly enjoyable to pull off, positioning the bike up and down on the track, and raising or lowering the front wheel at the most effective angles for distance and smooth landings. You can select from a solo run, which pits you against the clock, or compete against computer-controlled bikers. As part of the system's programmable series of cartridges, the game includes a special design mode that lets you create your own courses. The manual states that the save and load menu options are not operable in this game, meaning that you can't save the courses that you created. Excitebike is a short but challenging game that still plays extremely well today, and it drops at 42 on our list. I first encountered Dragon Warrior 4 in EGM. The article mentioned that the Japanese release of the game caused such fervor that kids skipped school the day it came out. The series certainly didn't have that sort of effect here in the States, but it is a mainstay of the JRPG genre, and as of writing this, there have been 11 numbered entries in the series and a number of spin-offs. It is as epic a quest as can be had on the NES. Wagons, ships, and even hot air balloons will carry you across multiple continents in quest. Numerous characters and day and night cycle add realism that goes far beyond what was offered in the first installment. One of my favorite things about it go beyond the RPG action itself. Most games have a tiny instruction booklet that really isn't needed, but Dragon Warrior 4 includes a plethora of paperwork. The instruction manual, which is called the Explorer's Handbook, is more like a novella than a booklet. Seeing the depth of the game in front of you adds to the allure in ways that I miss in this era of digital download gaming. Dragon Warrior 4 falls in at 41 on our list. Share your memories in the comments, and thanks for watching. As a child, there was one game that eluded me, Kid Icarus. I had seen the title in Captain and the Game Master, and I had seen the game on all the Now You're Playing with Power posters that came with my other games. It was even in my 1990 Nintendo The Power Game calendar, but the game itself was nowhere to be found. I never saw it in any stores, and none of my rental shops carried it. Then one day, my mom and I took a ride out to a not-so-local game shop, and there it was. I snagged it and enjoyed the long car ride home, poring over the instruction manual and all the amazing artwork inside. I had romanticized this game for what felt like an eternity at this point, and it was the one piece of Nintendo's world that I didn't have any experience with. There was no way it could possibly live up to its expectations. But it did. From Hip Tanaka's absolutely stellar music to the tough-as-nails gameplay to the weird sense of humor hiding underneath the surface, Kid Icarus was everything I wanted it to be. Now if they'd only just make a few more of them. I had played a few shoot-em-ups before I discovered Gradius, but I didn't love them like I loved this game. I was immediately enthralled with the world that the game was giving me, enemy ships and mechs buzzing around rocky terrain. It took me a while to get past stages 1 and 2, but then seeing stage 3 with all the Moai heads everywhere sealed it for me that this game was awesome. And thank God Konami gave us the Konami code, otherwise I would never have been able to get through it as a kid. Great music and gameplay really showed that this is an outstanding game for its time, along with proving that the NES could give us decent ports of an arcade game. The Warp Rattler may be the most awesome fighting ship ever let loose in the galaxy. Challenging to the extreme, definitely not for beginners. With its endless hordes of fast and evasive enemies, Gradius will test your reflexes to the limit. If you like shooting games with fast action, this is one of the best that we've seen. Gradius falls in at number 39 on our list. Drop your memories in the comments. Thanks for watching. The intro of the NES version of Maniac Mansion is flawless. On a perfectly clear night where each individual star can be seen shining brightly around an eerily lit full moon, a single cricket chirps off in the distance, and all of a sudden a meteor comes blasting out of the heavens, hurtling toward a spooky mansion that sits high up on the hill. As the meteor hits the ground, it's accompanied by a loud crash. The crash awakens the mansion's inhabitants, and each room begins to light up simultaneously with the sound of a glorious 8-bit drum beat. My younger cousin came to visit one afternoon and he brought it to my house. His parents had just purchased it for him at Toys R Us on the ride over, and after seeing that intro I fell in love with the game. I asked to borrow it, and since he had just gotten it, he said no. Well, his mom heard me begging and forced him to leave it with me. I smirked as he reluctantly said fine. I still have that copy to this day. I brought up that memory at a recent family gathering and he remembered it. I still feel bad about the whole thing, but I wouldn't give that card up for the world. Drop your memories in the comments, and thanks for watching. One of the many Tetris-inspired puzzlers that flooded the market during the early 90s, this game features Mario positioned near the top of the screen, dropping vitamin capsules into a bottle-shaped playfield filled with viruses, and the player must rotate the capsules and position them in a way as to remove the viruses from the screen. The capsules, which are divided into color-coded halves, come in red, yellow, and blue, as do the viruses. When 4 or more capsule halves and/or viruses of the same color are lined up in a row by the player, they disappear. Dr. Mario is one of the better, more enjoyable puzzle games for any system thanks to its crisp visuals, pleasant audio, the music is especially chipper, strategic gameplay, and smooth difficulty progression. While it may not be as deep as some of its counterparts, it has more than enough charm to be considered a classic. Dr. Mario falls in at number 37 on our list. Share your memories in the comments, and thanks for watching. The forerunner of Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation, and an influential game in the stealth genre, Metal Gear for the NES is a port of the original MSX2 game. You play the role of Solid Snake, a marine who must infiltrate 5 heavily fortified overhead view strongholds throughout Outer Haven, which is a South African nation ruled by the ruthless dictator Colonel Vermin Katafi. Snake can acquire guns, a rocket launcher, plastic explosives, landmines, and other weapons by finding them in trucks and enemy storehouses, and by taking them from certain enemies. But hiding and sneaking past guards and soldiers is his primary strategy. If he's spotted by enemies, infrared sensors are tripped. He'll communicate with headquarters and rescue hostages, and certain areas require number-coded keys to enter. Other helpful items in this complex though popular game include body armor, a bomb blast suit, binoculars, a transceiver, a mine detector, a flashlight, a compass, rations, and an oxygen tank, among others. Share your memories in the comments. Thanks for watching. Where Gradius 2 absolutely excels is in its level designs. This is also a point I found rather lackluster in the original, and so the fact that Konami was able to turn this around is very impressive. The last time around, the stages were too similar and the environmental hazards boring. That most definitely isn't the case here in Gradius 2. While the first stage starts out very similarly to past titles, it's in our outer space with just a few incoming rows of enemies. That's when things change, however. You're flying through various suns complete with solar flares, through really well-designed caverns and more. Heck, even the stage with the Easter Island statues is super interesting because they turn based on where you are relative to their position. Mechanically, this is one of the most diverse and interesting shmups on the NES. The soundtrack is also super well done. It sounds like Gradius, but has better music with anything that we've ever heard of the original. It's one of my favorite NES soundtracks. Gradius falls in at 35 on our list. Share your memories in the comments. Thanks for watching. I received my copy of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, back in 1990 for my 9th birthday. I remember the feeling I felt unwrapping the game and how excited I was to plug it in and play it. This is because Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles by Konami in the arcade, released a year earlier, was and still is one of my favorite all-time coin-op games. The graphics and sprites were on point, and as a huge fan of the animated series, I felt like I was playing the cartoon. When I heard the Ultra Games Konami was porting the game to the NES, I knew I had to own it. The game certainly doesn't disappoint, and to make it even more awesome, the NES port features 2 additional stages and new enemies. I quickly learned how to master the jump attack, and in doing so, mow down Foot Clan enemies in one fell swoop. It's a game I still enjoy playing today, and I thought it was cool that it featured Pizza Hut in-game advertisements as well as a Pizza Hut coupon. TMNT 2 falls at number 34 on our list. Drop your memories in the comments, and thanks for watching. Tecmo Super Bowl ups the ante on the original Tecmo Bowl, which was already great, with better graphics and more plays, including offensive and defensive playbooks. There are 30 players per team, each rated according to such attributes as running speed, rushing power, hitting power, passing speed, control, and passing ability. Their condition is taken into account as well, from excellent to in a slump to sidelined with an injury. Each player, including such stars as Joe Montana, John Elway, Bo Jackson, and Emmitt Smith, is based on real data from the 1991-1992 NFL season. Gamers can experience the entire 1991 NFL season using any of the 28 NFL teams of the era. While Tecmo Bowl consisted of 9-on-9 action, Tecmo Super Bowl lets each team field 11 on-screen players. A passionate fanbase hacks updates the game each year to reflect current NFL teams, players, stats, and the like. Drop your memories in the comments, and thanks for watching. As with the first game in the series, Ninja Gaiden offers plenty of manly hack-and-slash action supplemented by killer platforming, dramatic music, and sweeping anime-style cutscenes. Gameplay is similar as players run, turn flips, battle enemies with quick sword thrusts, and jump off walls and over fire spikes and other obstacles. However, this time Ryu can throw fireballs, climb on walls, and split his body into 3 for a multiple attack, which is a cool and powerful effect. In addition, the game has more detailed backgrounds, some fresh, if not frustrating, environmental hazards such as mountain winds that can whisk Ryu off into deadly chasms, and new characters including the demonic villain Ashtar, who wields the titular Sword of Chaos. Other significant enemies include Dando the Cursed, Baron Spider, Funky Dynamite, and Naga Satuba. Ninja Gaiden 2's difficulty level is nothing to scoff at. This game eats 8-bit novices for breakfast to this day. Developed by Intelligent Systems and published by Nintendo, Famicom Wars was the first installment in the series, released in 1988, and receiving glowing praise in years to follow. Some actually consider Famicom Wars to be the spiritual predecessor to the Fire Emblem games. Both games were developed by Intelligent Systems and share almost the exact same gameplay elements, minus an obvious change in setting. In the gameplay, you have the option of playing one of 2 armies, Red Star or Blue Moon. What's the difference? Red Star starts on the left side and Blue Moon starts on the right. You start at your army's barracks at the end of the map and you can purchase infantrymen, mechs, and tanks. Infantrymen can move 3 spaces at a time and is the weakest of the 3. Mechs launch rockets but can only move 2 spaces, and tanks are the strongest and can move 5 spaces per turn. Why was this not released in the West? Well, turn-based games weren't very popular at the time and the Cold War was still going on. I guess that's pretty self-explanatory. Famicom Wars drops at 31 on our list. Share your memories in the comments. You battled the Bacterians in Gradius, but now it's time to take on the planet devourer Zelos in the sequel to that classic game. Life Force is similar to its progenitor, complete with manual power-up system, but alters the formula by adding vertical scrolling and two-player simultaneous action. Gamers fly their starship through the insides of the aforementioned creature, firing lasers at alien vessels, space rocks, a phoenix, a sphinx, a giant brain, and other enemies. Certain enemies leave pods when destroyed, and you can grab these to upgrade your ship. Upgrades are selectable through a menu along the bottom of the screen, and with each capsule you grab, it cycles through a number of options. It's up to you to select which power-up to equip. Although it suffers from some slowdown, Life Force is a nice port of Konami's 1986 arcade game. The tough-as-nails gameplay and colorful, detailed graphics will thrill shooter fans, and if you find it too difficult, enter the famous Konami code. Drop your memories in the comments, and thanks for watching! Star Tropics may not be a perfect video game, but it sure was one of the most memorable, which is saying something considering the size and quality of the NES library. This game is legendary among gamers of a certain age thanks to the whole dip your uncle's letter in water thing. When I played, I had the letter, did the water thing, and it was awesome. My friend was not so lucky. When he got to that part, he was completely confused. He had rented the game and it didn't come with the instruction manual. He had no idea what to do, so he tried calling me. This was before cell phones and I was out riding my bike or something, so he was on his own. When he finally did get in touch with me and told me how he got past it, I couldn't help but be impressed. He actually sat there and entered every single number starting at 0 until he made it to 747, which was the actual code. It took him and his sister hours, and I still can't believe they didn't just give up. Star Tropics falls at 29 on our list. Share your memories in the comments. Thanks for watching. Like many a Mega Maniac who grew up in the 1980s, my first experience with the Blue Bomber was playing Mega Man 2 at a friend's house. I was so enthralled that I assumed such a great game came from an equally great predecessor, so I went to Noble Electronics and rented an NES and a copy of Mega Man for the weekend. What followed was several straight days of exquisitely painful delight. Mastering Mega Man with no passwords and an era when save states and walkthroughs didn't exist was brutal, but a young Mega Man fan like me clearly had a masochistic streak. This should have been the end of my love affair with Mega Man because the sequel took the things the game did and improved on them. However, there's still so much to love here. The music is among the best in the entire series. The boss battle when I was fully powered up with all the weapons was a huge adrenaline rush. The vanishing blocks I now love to hate forced me to get good and learn through rote memorization, repeating each sequence until I could do it blindfolded. I'll always remember the satisfaction of returning that rental and saying, "Let me know when you get a copy of Mega Man 2, I already beat this one." I don't remember the year when Nintendo Power offered a free copy of Dragon Warrior to new subscribers, but it seemed too good to be true. After a solid week of pestering my mother, she agreed to buy a subscription. Clearly, I had convinced her of the overwhelming financial benefits of this offer. Ordering anything through the mail as a kid in the 80s required infinite patience, as 6 to 8 weeks of processing time was pretty standard. In fact, it took so long I had actually forgotten about it when I received the package. I tore into the padded envelope and was surprised that not only had Nintendo Power sent the game, but also a miniature explorer's handbook, a lamented adventure guide card, and a fold-out map and bestiary. As luck would have it, I was grounded from playing Nintendo at the time, so I was only allowed to read the handbook. I must have read through it a dozen times, even taking it to school, and by the time I was actually allowed to play Dragon Warrior, I felt like a seasoned player. Had I played the game the day I received it, I don't think I would have enjoyed it half as much as I did after the preparation. Now the franchise remains one of my favorites. As in the first two games in the series, Dragon Warrior 3 has players exploring towns, dungeons, and castles and battling monsters to level up their characters and add to their arsenal. However, the game has more detailed graphics, better sound, more weapons, armor, and magic spells, and a more intricate storyline. In addition, players can recruit 3 characters to their party from 8 different classes: Hero, Soldier, Pilgrim, Wizard, Fighter, Merchant, Sage, and Goof Off. A nifty job system enables the changing of character classes mid-game, letting players create powerful combo characters. Other flourishes include day and nighttime travel, the ability to gamble on monster battles at fight rings, and more than 40 castles, towns, villages, and shrines to visit. The party system is reminiscent of Ultima 3, and in many ways it's a similar game, except that Dragon Warrior 3 is many more times dense. It's mostly linear, though it does feature the requisite mid-game gather up the MacGuffin's questline to mix things up a bit. If you're looking for the old-school combat-heavy endurance RPG, you can certainly do worse than Dragon Warrior 3.